Now, many of you were present at the meeting we just concluded of the National Executive Committee of the All Progressives Congress.
Only five. 2 of us, not many of us.
Well, as long as some of you were present, and indirectly all of you were present. I know you are all very kind when it comes to information sharing. But, we apologize for that because you understand the circumstances of NEC, especially with the very limited makeshift tent that we use for this meeting today. We didn't have all of the space we would have liked to accommodate everybody, which is why some of you who were accredited for the meeting, who came late and didn't gain access, I did twice go out to persuade people, who are working on security to give access to some of us. But one of the, now this is, I'm going in no particular order, but one of the, I think, very serious appeal that the national chairman made to NEC today was for them to support his vision and his idea to acquire space for the development of a befitting complex for the party to host the party headquarters with a self-contained system of facilities so that meetings like the one we just had today can be convened comfortably at a facility that is purpose-built for that. So my hope is that in the near future, this plan or proposal will materialize and will afford all of us more comfort when we have these statutory meetings of the party. Now, as you know, our meeting began yesterday at the banquet hall of the presidential villa, the meeting of the national caucus of our party. Now, that meeting constitutionally usually precedes the National Executive Committee meeting. And one of its major purpose is to set the stage for the NEC meeting, to review the agenda of NEC and deliberate on matters that will be placed before NEC for consideration. Almost like a forerunner meeting to the meeting. And we had that last night, and it was wonderful. Members who attended, first it was well attended under the leadership of Mr. President. And everyone who came in very high spirits and deliberated, listened to each other, and we came off that meeting, I think, feeling good with the state of address of the party, energized to do the meeting we had today. But essentially, in keeping with its statutory commitments, the All Progressives Congress held its national caucus meeting and NEC meeting on the 25th and the 26th today, February, respectively at the State House Banquet Hall and at the party's National Secretariat here in Abuja. At the caucus meeting, leaders who were present reviewed the progress that the party has made over the last nearly 2 years of the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And in doing that review, members were very forthcoming in their assessment, in a very honest assessment of the progress made by this president and the administration. And I'm happy to say that many of the speakers, of our leaders who commented, were very positive about the state of address and the state of the nation. They were very positive. Examples of progress were given from the economy of our country to national security to education, just to, I think, some of the more recent difficulties that Nigerians are about to grapple with. Food prices, matters concerning the core of our economy, the productivity in the oil sector, some of the massive transformation we're witnessing in that sector. That's now repositioning the economy for growth and prosperity. At that meeting, members, given all of the reports that were received, passed a vote of confidence on Mr. President and urged him to continue his determined effort to tackle basic problems across sectors of the economy and to deliver increased benefits for the good and comfort of Nigerians. And the caucus also deliberated and approved all of the agenda items, as I said earlier, that were now placed before NEC today for discussion and approval. Now, at today's 13th meeting of the National Executive Committee, the party leaders, again, flowing from the National Caucus meeting, again reviewed the context and the mood of the country, and highlighted several examples, trends, indications that show massive improvement in virtually all sectors. The growth that just recently been reported of our GDP, the fact that today, under the leadership of this president, our country is witnessing something that we haven't seen in a very long time, which is that we are now consistently exporting goods and services more than we're importing goods and services into this country. In other words, a balance of payments has improved drastically, and that's good for the economy. In the oil sector, we've seen a dramatic increase in our country's oil output from where somewhere under 1 million barrels of oil per day to now nearly 1.8 million barrels of oil per day. And that is the result, direct result of a lot of the efforts at reform in the oil sector, the war against theft of our oil by of course, elements who don't wish this country well. And a lot of the really creative reform that has attracted investment and created more order and more environment, a better environment for increased output. The agricultural sector was also highlighted at this meeting. Members noted that we're witnessing a surge in that sector, where we're seeing more than 20% improvement in food productivity, which has now started to cause prices to fall. Prices of a lot of produce that people depend on, our people depend on every day to maintain themselves and their lives. So members expressed a lot of satisfaction with the progress that we are making under the leadership of this president. In the area of security, it was also highlighted that security across the board has also improved remarkably. And several of our speakers paid tribute to members of our security forces who are fighting every day in the line, laying their lives down for those who pay the high price, unfortunately. May God rest their souls. But those who continue to fight so we all can be safe. So they pay tribute to our men and women in uniform who work out every day, put their own lives at risk so we all can sleep better and stay safe. However, it was noted that it's not yet Uhuru. We're not out of the woods yet. And that we must acknowledge progress so we can mark and create markers for improved efforts. This president, more than any president in the history of our country recently, has devoted a lot of resources funding our military better, motivating them, inspiring them to work harder. And which is why we're seeing all of the improvements that we're seeing. As a result of all of these noted improvements in all the sectors, education, student loan program was highlighted, that is delivering needed help to our indigent students who can now study without the overhang of the pain of the struggle of finding money to support themselves and their fees in school, but now are receiving these loans has enabled them to free themselves and concentrate more on their studies. These are things which we have not witnessed. Certainly not on this scale, not on this level of commitment to policy. So members highlighted that we're witnessing a very quiet revolution in our country. Small steps, but assured small steps that will lead us into a confident, vibrant future. As a result, members of our National Executive Committee today doubled down on the vote of confidence passed on Mr. President yesterday at the National Caucus meeting. An absolute vote of confidence was passed on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today in recognition of the administration's bold and unprecedented program of economic reform, which clearly now, indisputably, are beginning to bear fruits and that require all of us to support so that our country can continue to break new grounds and assure our future. NEC also passed a vote of confidence on our national chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, for the remarkable record of successes that he has led the party to attain. Successes not just in terms of electoral victory, which we have won. We lost some, but we've won quite a good number. But more importantly, in holding the party together and forging opportunities for members of the party to dialogue and engage with each other and express themselves and, ensure that we operate more cordially than some of our competition in the opposition, who clearly, now in closing, just to underscore that some of the key points I've highlighted were the major points of decision made at today's meeting. But for those of us who were in that room, you could feel the energy and the optimism of leaders of our party as we step into the future, especially as we also brace for the upcoming off-cycle elections, that we were reminded, Mr. President specifically charged members of NEC and the National Working Committee to set up committees and strengthen existing committees to engage with leaders of our party in states, especially where we have issues or existing conflicts. But it is important that we wade into those conflicts, bring all of our leaders and actors in those states together, and improve relations amongst them, strengthen the party, and give us the best opportunity we have to continue to win elections in those states. Now, having said all of this, I think that overall, we are very happy that progress is being made. But let me say that the president is not about to rest on his oars. This party is not about to rest on the successes so far. I think it was, let me find so I can refer to it correctly. I think it was the Senate President, His Excellency Godswill Akpabio, who said at that meeting that President Tinubu is someone who thinks about the next generation rather than about the next election. When he said that, I took note of that because to me it captures the essence of the president, which is why he had the courage to undertake this program of reform, even when it didn't seem popular to do so, even when he realized that in the short term, the backlash from implementing these policies would be very unpopular. But he was not deterred by that concern. He refused to do what most presidents who have governed this country have done, which is to simply kick the can down the road and postpone the day of reckoning and hand that to the next president. But he said, no, I am not doing that. The buck will stop here. And he started. I know a lot of people had their faith tested. Even as some of our leaders confessed that privately they had their faith thoroughly tested. But that a few months later now, they're beginning to see not just the logic, but also the promise of something better coming out of this massive program of economic renovation, foundational renovation, which we haven't done for years. At the time this president took over, this country was gasping for breath, economically speaking. Gasping. Some would even go as far as saying that the country was on oxygen already. Where nearly 70% of all of our revenues went straight into subsidizing our consumption of petrol and petrol products and servicing our debts. That ratio has improved today. Price of food is beginning to come down, as was noted as we head into Ramadan and, for Christians, Easter, that we are now more optimistic that more people will be able to afford just their basic needs and food supplies. So I think this is a moment where we all must remain sober and in real patriotic reflection about what is going on in our country. It's not a time to simply wish the country, all the negative energy. We don't need that. Because, quite frankly, some of us who had the opportunity to be, in other countries, let me not say some of us. Let me use myself as an example. Once I had a green card, turned down all the offers of citizenship, American citizenship. And even the green card, I gave it up. Because I didn't take any foreign citizenship, because I didn't want to dilute my Nigerianness. And I tell that to anybody who cares to listen. I didn't. Even after my education in probably one of the best universities in the world, I could have stayed back to do other things. But I said, no, I'm going home. Somebody built that country. We must build our own. As difficult as it may be, we must build it. It may look right now that, everything is not perfect, and it's not perfect. But it was not perfect for them. It was not always perfect for them. It was not always perfect for any country of the world. They also had their tittering moments where they thought there was no pathway forward. But they persevered. And they built their countries now that all of us, many of us, want to at least visit, if not even go emigrate to live. But we must build our own to the point where, Americans will also want to come live in Nigeria. It is possible. But it will take a lot of commitment and a lot of support and patriotic zeal to do that. But I know that it is possible. And the good news is that we have a president who has set the ball rolling. He deserves our support. He deserves our prayers. And I think that was the consensus that came out of this meeting today. Thank you very much. I'll take a few questions if you have any. Questions about the presence or absence of some of our leaders from today's meeting. As far as I know, I have never known the caucus meeting of our party or the NEC meeting of our party to be attended 100% by all of the members of NEC or caucus. And I'm not sure that there's really any political party where that attains 100% attendance at meetings. Because when you call meeting, part of the reason these meetings are difficult to call is because, there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of back-end negotiation, of the convenience, availability of key leaders who we require to be at the meeting. For example, when you have a president as busy as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with his schedule, it's not a tea party to reconcile his movements and his schedule to get him to come sit at a meeting for 3-4 hours. It's not that easy. So whatever date you pick will be convenient for some, may not be convenient for others. That's just the way it is. So that's the first point I make, that, those who came today came. Those who didn't come, didn't come. Now, I can't stand here and tell you why they didn't come. But be rest assured that every member of the caucus and of NEC were invited. The list of members today was comprehensive. As a matter of fact, we enlarged the list today. For this meeting today, we had more members invited than we did previously. So, quite to the contrary, the trend is towards accommodating more leaders as members of NEC. Now, as for statements credited to former governor of Kaduna State about the organs of the party, whether they're working or they're not working. Look, I think that any Nigerian knows the answer to that question. APC and its organs are working as effectively as possible. That's beyond question. How else do you explain the vibrancy of the party? How else do you explain the deluge we're witnessing, the drift of people? Today it was said that more than 18 legislators at the National Assembly, if I'm not correct, I don't know if I'm mistaken, give and take, a sizable number of legislators who have already decamped from the opposition parties into our party. If their parties were working more efficiently, they won't be coming to join us. And we welcome them because it's a democracy. Every citizen has the freedom to associate freely. So what the former governor of Kaduna State was it, look, there's a difference between party men and people who speak because they have a grievance. Grievance-driven commentary, to me, are not to be taken that seriously. Because clearly, from all of the comments that the former governor has put out recently, it's clear that he simply has an axe to grind. A lot of the key points, especially on the Arise News Network interview he had. But for this commitment to meetings yesterday and today, I was prepared to respond to the former governor and to suggest to him that some of his engagement, his recent engagements and commentary, are unnecessary for someone who occupies the position that he has occupied in this country. men who are respected must also continue to justify the respect that they get. It's not a good idea that once you are dissatisfied, especially when it comes to personal experiences, then you want to visit your personal grievance on a system of a political party. You are just one individual. El-Rufai is just one person. Yes, he was, a former minister, he was a former governor. He's been up there, but at the end of the day, he occupies one seat in the party scheme. He's a highly respected citizen. But my advice and counsel to him is that he needs to get a perspective and speak in a manner that is befitting of his status. Because otherwise, if he continues to engage, people have a right to reply. We have a right to reply. But I will leave it at that, because that's not the subject of the conversation today. But I think that we should see the meeting today for what it is, which is that it was well attended by all those who had to be there, were there, and the greater majority of those who were invited were at this meeting, and we had quite a successful discussion, as I said earlier. Thank you.